welcome back to the NFL Abroad podcast. In this episode, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the Week 7 games, the first of which is the New Orleans Saints taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Minnie, your Saints last week, they took a devastating loss really to the Texans. Are you expecting them to bounce back this week?
No, if I'm honest. Another disappointing loss. Well, yeah, another disappointing loss against, one of the best teams in the league, really, the Texans. You know, that team who went, 3-13 last year, it?
Yeah, spot on there. And they'll probably do the same again this year.
They've already matched.
I think they got 4 wins, actually.
No,
I don't know.
I think they're 3-3 on the season, so they've already matched the win record from last season, so that means they're improved. But yeah, what a disappointing loss after coming off that 34-0 win against the Patriots. And the problems are back on offense. So what did I say last week? I hope that the offense stays like this. And they didn't, did they? So defense stepped up, give the offense plenty of opportunities in that fourth quarter to get points, and we just ran out of downs both times. So yeah, disappointing, to be honest. I don't really want to say too much else about the Saints. I think I'll probably talk about that Texans performance because, wow, once again, they look well coached and they played very well in the game as well, and they actually deserve to win. So fair play to Bobby Slowick, CJ Stroud and those boys.
Yeah, to be fair, I think this probably summarises the Saints season so far. This game, it's pretty much exactly where I see them, to be honest. They're a very average, mid-table sort of team. They've obviously lost to the Saints into the Texans in a close one, who were also sort of a mid-table team at the minute, but they're sort of on the rise. I'd say your boys are sort of on the downward spiral at the minute. And obviously it doesn't get any easier this week for the Saints. Obviously they're going to take on the Jaguars, who are on a 3-win streak at the minute, and that offense, in contrast to yours, seems to be starting to fire now.
Yeah, absolutely does, and it helps with the amount of turnovers that they're getting in games as well, to be fair. They got 4 last week against the Colts, 3 interceptions and a forced fumble by that man Josh Allen. And to be honest, that defense, it scares me. I hate to know what they're going to do to this Saints offense this week.
Yeah, exactly. The defense has sort of stood up for them all season long. And we know they've obviously got quite a lot of talent on that side of the ball. They're restricting teams to low-scoring games, but now obviously the offense is starting to fire as well. Obviously, they scored 37 points last week, and it probably could have been more, to be honest. Travis Etienne, he got 2 touchdowns, and he sort of seems to be getting a bit better. And yeah, this offense does seem to be starting to click a little bit more. The only concern for them will be, of course, obviously Trevor Lawrence. He went down with a knee injury at the end of last week's game, so fingers crossed for them guys that it's not serious.
Well, fingers crossed for us guys. It's not serious as well, to be fair, but he just has to miss one game. That'd be ideal, wouldn't it? So, would we still win? I'm not sure.
To be honest, I think he's likely to play in this game. That's what the media are saying anyway. He's likely to play this game, and if he does, obviously, I think Jacksonville have got to be the favourites coming into this one.
Of course he's going to play, and he's going to turn up just like everyone else does against the Saints.
I don't think it's everyone else's problem. I think it's a Saints problem. They've got a top 5 defense in the league and probably a bottom 5 offense in the league. They just can't seem to get anything going.
Well, I can confirm, to be fair, that the defense is top 5 statistically. They are top 5. The red zone defense is phenomenal. To be fair, we stopped the Texans many a time last week from taking that game from outside. A 1 score. We give ourselves countless opportunities to get back into it. But when you've got an offense that's rated 20th in the league, then that's where your problems are. On paper, we're worse than the Cardinals and the Bears in terms of offense. So that's exactly where the issues lie.
Yeah, and I think that is the main struggle coming into this game as well. I think Jaguars' defense is probably better than that of the Texans from a week ago, and I just can't seem to figure out where you're going to actually score points in this one, because despite having sort of big names, I guess you could say, on offense, with obviously Kamara and Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, it just doesn't seem to be working out as it should. I'm pretty sure your offensive line isn't too bad either. So it's got to come down to the coach and the play calling, surely.
Oh, it's Pete Carmichael. I was singing his praises last week, and we've just gone back to the old boring, no motion. There's no false plays, there's no tricks. It's so predictable. You could tell what Derek Carr sort of wanted to do. And even the touchdown that we scored with Rashid Shaheed, who came into the game and made 2 massive plays, arguably 50-50 balls, and he was lucky just to come down with that touchdown. And then later in the game with that sort of, 30 to 40 yard grab. I mean, both of them could quite easily have been intercepted. And
yeah, certainly could.
On another day, we lose the ball again a couple of times there. And then I don't really trust the kicker either. The rookie Blake Groupie, I think he missed a couple of field goals as well. So they don't.
Yeah,
do we really want to reply?
Season, isn't he, really?
He's struggling. I don't know if it's a lack of confidence or if he's good enough. I really don't know what's up with Blake Groupie at the moment. I hope he's on the training field kicking field goals for fun, because he's certainly going to need to. He's probably going to have to kick a few against the Jags.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like you say, just touching on Raheem Shaheed again. He keeps coming up with these big plays, and I just can't help but wonder why is he not featured more heavily in this offense, because he's certainly got that juice to take the top of our defense. And if you can incorporate him in more games, it opens up the running game and it opens up the underneath passion as well. It's like, in my opinion, if you can sort of get him more involved, more of a threat down the field, it opens up the entire offense. And I just can't understand why he's only getting sort of 2 or 3 targets each game.
I mean, yeah, within probably most games this season, certainly in the last 2 that I can remember, he's had an 80-yard or so. It might have even been a return from the kickoff. And then, like I said, last week he comes in for a touchdown, he comes in for another 50-yard play or whatever it was. And that's it. That's all we see from him. I don't get why Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael aren't sort of scripting more plays up for him, because he's looking like a sort of best weapon at the moment, to be honest. And he's not there in the game. I like you said, I can't wrap my head around that either, to be fair.
No, and I think it's something surely that they're going to be looking at this week ahead of this game. Because they're having opportunities against the Jaguars team. It's not like they're unbeatable, but they're going to do a hell of a lot better than they did last week. With that being said, I am going to take the Jaguars in this one. They've got the momentum, 3-win streak. The offense is firing, the defense is firing, and I just struggle to see where any points are going to come for this Saints team.
Yeah, I think as much as it pains me to say it, to be fair, I think this will be the first time that I've gone against the Saints, but they have disappointed me, so we'll be taking the Jags to win, and hopefully that means the Jags will lose. Right, so kicking off Sunday games at 6 p.m, the first matchup that we've got is the Lions taking on the Ravens. 2 teams in form, to be fair, Callum. How do you think these guys will get on against each other?
Yeah, I mean, both teams are coming off big victories a week ago. And, I've seen people recently, saying that the Detroit Lions are actually the best team in the league right now, which I think is just crazy to think. For me personally, I don't think they're quite that good. I think the 5-1 record is a bit almost overrating them slightly. I think they are a very good team, but are they the best team in the league? I don't think so. I think they're probably a year away from sort of being a Super Bowl contender. But with that being said, you can't really fault what they're doing. They absolutely slapped the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last week, who coming into the game, everyone thought was a good team. This defense is elite. This offense is elite. It's one of the best teams to watch in the entire league, to be honest. I don't know what you thought of them as well.
I mean, you're not wrong, to be fair. I think they've probably got to be up there for that 3rd seed now that they're beating the Bucs, leading that division. I think they pretty much beat everyone in the division when they play them. Again, if they haven't already played them, I think they've already beat the Packers, and I don't see anyone in their division touching them, to be fair. So they'll have their eyes on that 3rd seed. But with teams that have slipped up this week, like the Eagles and 49ers, could they be looking at that 1st and 2nd seed? I'm not sure. We'll have to see what happens as the season goes on.
I do think they are in contention for the 1st seed, to be honest, because like you said, they're in that easy division. I'm pretty sure they've got the Bears and the Vikings to play twice, if I'm not mistaken. And we know just how difficult that Eagles schedule is. So it might be a shootout between them and the 49ers, but I'm pretty sure the 49ers have got a difficult schedule as well. So the Lions could go into the playoffs as the number 1 seed. I still don't think they'll be the best team, but just on ease of schedule, I think they could be there.
I mean, from what we've seen already, they've looked brilliant, to be fair, mate. I mean, defense, you've got Aiden Hutchinson. He's been a machine, to be fair. He's had an interception and a forced fumble. I think he's had, maybe the interception were a pick 6 against the Panthers, if I remember that correctly. Yeah. They're the 7th best defense in the league currently, and they made light work of the Bucs, really. I think they forced them into, only 3 field goals last week? 2 field goals, so they only put up 6 points. Yeah. I mean, that's the difference currently between the 3rd and 4th seed in the NFC. So and they've wiped the floor with them. So maybe they are better than that 3rd seed.
Well, yeah, and you just said they're a top 7 defense, sorry, and they're actually ranked 3rd for offense as well. It just shows how well rounded this team is in general. I mean, you look on both sides of the ball and they're absolutely stacked. I mean, I think the only concern for me right now for the Lions is both of their star running backs are both injured at the minute. I'm not sure if Jameer Gibbs will be back this week. I mean, we know they took him, I think it was like 12th overall in this year's draft. So, they're expecting big things out of him. But they are likely to miss David Montgomery for the next, I think it's 4 to 6 weeks. So that's probably the only weakness you can probably point at coming into this game against the Ravens.
I know, to be fair, and it's a massive shame, really, because he's been quality this season, and statistically he would be a top 5 running back based on what we've seen if he'd played all games. But, it's not like the short of talent on offense. They've got probably the best rookie tight end, in my opinion, Sam Laporta. I know that you've sort of raved about him a lot this season as well. And then from that wide receiver, weapons-wise, they've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who he's looked good as well, and statistically will be a top 5 receiver if he'd played all 5 games. I mean, he went for another 12 carries, 124 yards, and another touchdown last week. So I don't really see a team slowing down the Lions at the moment. But having said that, this Ravens defense, I think, is second? Are they second best defense in the league, or the top 5? I know that for a fact.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So could you see the Ravens slowing down this Lions team?
Well, the Ravens are a funny one for me. I mean, like you said, they've got a very good defense, and obviously they did come away with the win in London last week. That takes them to 4-2. But for me, they're just not impressing me when I watch them. They're almost stumbling across the line in games to get the victory. We know they're obviously struggling in the run game, and sort of Lamar Jackson's having to carry that load almost by himself at times. Neither of their running backs really taking off, and obviously the week before last we saw the drops and problems they were having. They did get back on top of that a little bit this week, but I'm not sure really what's going on with this offense. They seem to have all the weapons in the right places, but they're just stumbling a little bit, and I think they will really struggle against this Lions team to score points. I mean, I think it'll be a low-scoring game anyway, with both very good defenses, but it just, the concern for me is where do the Ravens get the points from?
Yeah, it's a good point, to be fair, but that defense is very strong, and they did only limit the Titans to 1 third down, I think it was last week. So if they're looking to, well, obviously they're looking to win this game, but if they're wanting to win this game, then that's what they've sort of got to apply to the Lions. And is that defense going to be able to stand up and stop this Lions team?
Yeah, well, they're going to have to try and find a way to stop it, and then need sort of turnovers and interceptions and stuff to try and get good field positions for this offense. And I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. Both kickers are going to be busy, I think. And it could really go either way, to be honest. It sort of depends who turned up on the day. It's a very good game, a very good matchup. And Lamar's going to be looking for his receiver to improve this week.
He certainly is, and he's going to need Mark Andrews to step up as well. He improved a little bit last week against the Titans. He's going to need to go for a big game if the Ravens want to win. But I can probably see mistakes continuing for Lamar Jackson this week. That Lions defense is going to apply a lot of pressure to him. And where he's like under pressure, he's good with his legs, don't get me wrong, but if he's trying to throw the ball, then more times than not, it seems to be getting intercepted, or he seems to be making mistakes and fumbling a lot recently. So, with all that said, I will be going for the Lions to win this game, extend on the season, and look to grab that first or second seed.
Yeah, I'm with you again on this one. I think the Lions are going to come out winners on this one. I think, like you said, that defensive line for the Lions are going to get to Lamar Jackson quite a bit in this game, put him under pressure. Like you say, he's had a bit of a problem with fumbles as of late this season, and even last season, to be fair, before he went down injured. So I can see errors being forced by this defense, and give me the Lions to come out on top. In the next game, we see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Both of these teams are coming off tough losses last week. Minnie, do you see anything in those games that they can bring into this game and have a bit of positivity coming into this one?
It's hard to find a positive, really. I mean, they're both coming off big losses, to be fair. The Bucs only put up 6 points last week, and the Falcons only put up 16 against a poor Commanders team, really. I think let's start with the Falcons. And let's start with that man, Desmond Ridder, who threw for another 3 interceptions last week and a fourth quarter that he'll never, ever want to remember. What was it? I think they went for a turnover on downs, and then they had an interception, and then a turnover on downs again. So, I mean, the defense stepped up for the Falcons, to be fair. They gave Desmond Ridder more than enough chance to score some points, and he ultimately bottled it in the end zone. But yeah, I mean, Falcons are struggling on offense, and so are the Bucs, it would seem. And 2 division rivals, I love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Desmond Ridder, he was terrible in that game last week. He threw 2 of his 3 interceptions in the fourth quarter. And there was a period in the fourth quarter, right, that the Falcons were 3rd and goal. And they somehow let there be a delay of game. I don't think it's bad coaching or the bad quarterback play, but yeah, delay of game on 3rd and goal obviously made it a longer play. The following play, they then snapped the ball with 1 second to go and Ridder airs it out for an interception. So, yeah, I think it's very poor quarterback play, very poor coaching, to be fair. I do think Arthur Smith is holding back this Falcons team. You know, they've got so much talent on both sides of the ball. You know, the defense actually playing pretty well, but the offense just cannot seem to get going despite all the weapons they've got. And I just think this team need a new coach, a new quarterback, and then they'll be a contender again. That's all they need, really. Everywhere else needs to be stacked.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly does, to be fair. There were some big games for Drake London once again. Bijan Robinson, I can't say I've been impressed, if I'm honest, mate, and he's not making my shortlist for Rookie of the Year at the moment. Whether you have a different opinion on that or not, you'll have to let me know.
No, to be honest, I pretty much agree with you. I'm not sure if it's the system he's playing in, or because he had 13 touches. Tyler Algier had 13 touches. Both of them didn't really do anything spectacular with those touches. It's like, I know he likes to sort of dish the ball out, Arthur Smith, and get everyone involved, but he doesn't allow any player to sort of get hot or like carry momentum. And again, I think this coaching is very poor for the Falcons, and it could be holding back Robinson. But he was outshone last week by the Robinson on the other side of the ball, really.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly right. You know what? I was going to say just that as well. We knew who the better Robinson were in that game, and it certainly was Brian Robinson for the Commanders.
Yeah, I mean, Bijan, he does have some highlights and a couple of big plays, but I just don't think he's involved enough, and I don't think enough of it is schemed open for him to make the most of either. So, I think this Falcons team are very mediocre at the minute. It shouldn't really concern it shouldn't be concerning the playoffs, I don't think, at the end of the season. But if they change the coaching staff, get a quarterback in the off season, maybe Kirk Cousins could be a potential target for them. And if so, I think this team could be very good in the next couple of years. But as of right now, it's not good.
Do you know what? I think you're absolutely right there, to be fair, mate. Absolutely right. I mean, they've got, on paper, the 4th best defence in the league. And like we said, it showed. They gave him enough chances last week to score some points in the 4th. Ultimately, he didn't take any of the opportunities. Threw the ball away countless times. And, you're just asking yourself to lose at that point. And then in terms of Arthur Smith, I just love to see it because he's so sort of, what's the word? I think like cocky in his post-match interviews when he wins. And then he's miserable as sin when he loses. So, do you know what? I'm glad that they've been humbled again because they have one week. They have 1 week where they win. They think they're mint, and they're not. And do you know what? I'm glad they lost against the Commanders. It were a shock, but I'm so glad. If we just move over to the Bucs side of the ball, and that's another disappointing loss for the Bucs, is it?
Yeah, I mean, this week should be stiffer competition for the Falcons. I mean, the Bucs are 3-2 on the season, and going into last week, I wouldn't say expected them to beat the Lions, and I wasn't even going to sort of move them down in my estimations, but it was just the way in which they lost. They just got absolutely beaten on both sides of the ball. This Bucs defense is a good defense on paper. Well, so far up to this point, the offense was good, and they just could not get anything going in this game. Baker Mayfield, he looked very, very poor. He threw an interception in the game, and there's just no run game last week. So it's a really weird one. The Bucs are probably better than they were last week, but they were playing a very good team in the Lions, and I am expecting them to bounce back in this one because, like we said, we think they are underlying a good team and much better than the Falcons. And I expect this defense to show up again this week. Because, they only let up 20 points to the Lions, which is not a lot to, like we said, the third best offense in the league. So if they can sort of put up a similar performance this week against a very weak Falcons offense, then, this is a bit of a mismatch. I think the Buccaneers should be the better team here.
I mean, statistically, they're playing a harder defence in the Falcons. As we said, the Lions were ranked 7th and the Falcons are ranked 4th. So I don't know what Baker Mayfield needs to do to get back to how he was playing, but I thought Baker Mayfield looked a lot like Baker Mayfield has done as of recent. And like you said, I've noted it down here, the rush game was non-existent. And since they've come back from the bye, it just looked like they had nothing going on offence. I think even Mike Evans and Chris Godwin struggled by their standards. So yeah, it's going to be a game of the defences, probably a low-scoring affair, and it could probably go either way.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I think it will be a battle of the defences, but I do expect Baker Mayfield to bounce back I agree. It did look like the Baker Mayfield of old last week, but I'm going to put it down to a one-off. I think this coaching staff will be drilling it into him this week. They'll have a good game plan coming into this one. And yeah, for that reason, I'm going to take the Buccaneers.
See, I'm in a position with this one. I don't know which quarterback I could trust more out of Baker and Desmond Ridder. I think I'm probably just going to have to side with Baker Mayfield. He has thrown less interceptions and he's put a couple of more touchdowns on the board. So I'll just side with the Bucs on this one, and I think they'll beat the Falcons this week.
Next up, we see an AFC East matchup as the New England Patriots take on the Buffalo Bills. The New England Patriots the worst team in the NFL right now? Because in my opinion, they are.
I think they certainly could be. I mean, they've got to be up there for the worst team in the AFC, and I think that the Giants are probably the worst team in the NFC. So the Bills have got lucky, really. They're playing two of the worst teams in the league, and I'd be very surprised if the Patriots do anything to them this week. But, I mean, I said that. The Giants went close last week, and arguably, if they'd have kicked that field goal, would have won the game just before half-time. So, yeah, the Bills didn't put up too many points, and, I thought they looked slow. I thought they looked a bit lethargic. And lucky that they were playing such a bad team that they managed to get away with a win. So, yeah, I don't really know what's going on with the Bills since they've gone to London and come back. They've just been so, I don't know, like lackluster. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they didn't score any points until the fourth quarter last week, and then obviously the offense seemed to come alive then. So it's weird. I'm not sure if they are, we're struggling with getting back on American time again, like they sort of did in London. Obviously, we know there's injuries on that defense, but it's not the defense that's struggling. It's the offense at the minute. The defense have held the Giants just 9 points last week, so you can't put any sort of blame on them. But yeah, the offense just kept stalling and stalling. We know Gabe Davis, I think he had a fumble. Josh Allen threw an interception. So yeah, things are just not cooking right now for that Bills offense.
No, they're certainly not James Cooking. You're right about that. Although he did have a better game compared to what we've seen for the last couple of weeks, to be fair. He went for 14 carries, 71 yards. So the run game were there a bit more this week. Latavius Murray, I thought, was all right. But yeah, it's weird because we saw this Bills team absolutely rip through the Dolphins not too long ago. And then since they've gone to London and came back, it seems to be problems on offense as much as there is on defense.
Yeah, it does. But I mean, their problems look like absolutely nothing compared to the problems that the Patriots are having at the minute. I was actually arguing with a couple of Patriots fans this week because I was saying that Mac Jones is probably one of the worst two quarterbacks in the league. And to be fair, some of them did agree with me. Others were like, no, it's all in the coach and it's all in the lack of talent around him. But for me, Mac Jones is a bottom two quarterback, just as the Patriots are a bottom two team. And I just cannot seem to see where points are coming from on this team. The running game is awful. I mean, they've got Ezekiel Elliott, who is about 5 years past his prime. He should be in a retirement home somewhere. And receiving-wise, there's just nothing. There's just nothing. I think Devontae Parker, who's their biggest name on that side of the ball, he dropped a wide-open catch last week. I just, honestly, they scored 17 points against the Raiders, who were also a terrible team. So I just can't see. And they might score 3 points against this Bills team, if they're lucky.
Well, I mean, they're lucky that they're catching the Bills with defensive problems / injuries at the moment. But I will say this, and this sums up this Patriots offense. It really does. They're the second worst offense in the league, and they've scored 72 points all season. I mean, that is just miserable.
Is it bad that I'm almost surprised I've scored that many?
Oh, well, to be fair, you're not wrong. You're absolutely not wrong. I mean, Matt Jones, 5 touchdowns on the season. Have a guess how many interceptions?
1 million?
7. 5 touchdowns, 7
Close
interceptions.
enough.
And you're telling me this is the Mac Jones project? The Mac Jones project is over, and so is the Bill Belichick one. I've been saying it for weeks. Just hang your boots up, Bill. It's time to go. Stop ruining this legacy for yourself. Just call it a day.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm sort of coming into agreement with you. To be honest, I think the longer he stays here, the more he damages his legacy. And at this point in his career, I think he's almost a bit too old for a full rebuild of this organisation, which is exactly what they need. They've got to sort of start from scratch, get rid of all the deadwood. The defense isn't terrible, to be fair. It's quite a good defense. Even that's got a couple of injuries. But right now, there's just absolutely nothing going for this team. And with that being said, I expect the Bills to have a sort of get-right game. I know they are coming off a win, but I mean, I expect them to look a lot more impressive this week and absolutely dominate their divisional rivals with a big victory.
Yeah, and I don't imagine they've done that many times over the decades, but on Sunday, that's certainly going to be one of them. I can't see it going any other way. I mean, that Patriots offensive line is non-existent. I've wrote down here, both receivers and running backs suck, and I think that's a fair analysis. Give me the Bills to get right, as you said, and totally dominate the Patriots this week. So, moving on, we see the Cleveland Browns taking on the Colts. Cleveland, who came off a massive and an unexpected win against the Niners, and the Colts coming off a disappointing loss against the Jags. How do you see these teams matching up against each other?
Well, I mean, let's talk about the Browns first. I mean, they've just beaten the best team in the league by everyone's standards, really. And it all comes down to that defense, as it has done so many times this season. They've got the best defense in the league, without question. And now, obviously, they're coming up against a team who are nowhere near, not even close to being as good as the 49ers. So they can keep that sort of momentum going, that performance going, then I can only see this one going one way, and that's to the Browns. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, the Browns have certainly cemented themselves as the best defense in the league. I think that's, without question, they've ended that 15-game streak by the Niners, that regular consecutive winning game record for the Niners, I should say. And they've done it with a backup quarterback, PJ Walker. So can we expect to see PJ Walker in against the other backup for the Colts, Gardner Minshew, this week?
Yeah, well, we saw, as was about an hour ago, that Anthony Richardson is now confirmed out for the season. He is going for surgery, so it means Gardner Minshew will be the starting quarterback for the rest of the season. And this is surely going to hurt the Colts fans here because, they probably had a bit of optimism coming into the season with a rookie quarterback. He's down and out for the season, and now they're back with Gardner Minshew, and that's just sort of crushed all optimism for their season.
I mean, before this game week, Gardner Minshew, when he's come into the game, he's not done bad. I thought he was the best backup in the league, and then he plays against the Jags last week, and he gets pumped. What was it? 37-20.
Yeah.
They lost last week, and he threw 3 interceptions in that game. So his starting the game clearly is not as good as him coming into the game. I thought he'd build momentum, but granted they were playing a good Jags defense. He seemed to struggle a lot, to be fair. But the Browns, wow, what a win that was against the Niners. I don't think anybody expected that.
No, and I think the biggest problem for the Colts and for Gardner Minshew is they went down so badly. They went down 31-6 at one point. I think another point they were down 21-3 or something like that. And it's like, at that point, they sort of gave up on the running game, the Colts, and it just meant, Gardner Minshew's thrown the ball 55 times, 329 yards. But yeah, with that comes interceptions. And, I'm not sure what happened obviously they went down early, and then there was just no running game from that point on. We talked last week that they might have the best 1-2 running backs, running punch in the game, and they had a total rushing yards of 40 yards between them. So it's something they're going to have to work on this week. They're going to establish a run early if they are going to beat this Browns team. But again, like we said, they're coming up against the best defense in the league. And, they just absolutely lights out. Everybody on that defensive side of the ball is flying to the ball. You got Myles Garrett, who's an absolute animal in himself. But there's so many quality players on that team. And, they're all finally starting to show up. They had so many first, second picks overall for many years, and a lot of first round talent has been spent on that defense, and now it's finally showing up. And
wow, it's showing up, and I tell you why it's showing up, because they've only given up 52 first downs all season in 5 games, and that is incredible. The second closest team is the Buccaneers, of course, and they've given up 94, which is nearly double. So that tells you everything you need to know about that Browns defense. Yeah,
it certainly does. And then look at the offensive side of the ball for this Browns team. I think they've just got to try and do enough until Deshaun Watson comes back. Philip Walker, he wasn't special last week. He had 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. Kareem Hunt, he sort of did have a pretty good game. He got a touchdown. But again, this week they're going to be relying on stopping the Colts, getting good field position, and just doing the best with what they can with this backup quarterback they've got at the moment.
The Colts are certainly not the 49ers, so I don't see them doing that much damage to this Browns team, and I'd be surprised if they put many more points past them, or many more than 17 points past them like the Niners did last week. You've talked about Myles Garrett. He's on 5.5 sacks for the season. He's already had a forced fumble. Martin Emerson picked off Purdy for the first time last week. And Grant Delpit, he's going under the radar as well. He's having quite the season at linebacker. So there's a lot of quality on both sides of the ball for the Browns, to be fair. They're just missing Deshaun Watson, but I think the offense will cope and the defense will get them out of trouble if they need to. And then in terms of the Colts, like you said, I feel like we might have jinxed the old running back 1-2 punch, Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor, and whether they're going to affect the Browns this week. Well, I mean, they didn't put up many yards against the Jags, and they're certainly not as good as the Browns on defense. So, in theory, they shouldn't really be hurting the Browns that much. But with all that said, Callum, which team will you be going for, and why?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I think it's probably closer than what it should be. This game, it's such a Cleveland Browns game to lose. They've been a sort of meme for the past few years, and I can see them losing this game. But I'm not going to pick them to lose this game. I'm going to take them to win. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But I'll be wrong in the majority. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, after coming off that win against probably the best team in the league, the 49ers, I don't think you can go against the Browns. But it is the NFL, and upsets do happen. But like you said, I can't take the Colts on this occasion. So give me that Browns defense to stand up strong once again. And PJ Walker to get a couple of touchdowns and get the job done.
Next up then, we have our rapid fire round. In the first game, we see the Chicago Bears taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. Who you got?
Give me the Raiders, because I trust Brian Hoyer a lot more than I can trust that backup at the Bears, Tyson Bagent. That man just needs to stick to arm wrestling because he ain't built for the NFL.
Well, I'm going to take the Chicago Bears. I'm just hoping that Justin Fields is back for this one, but we won't know until later in the week. Next up then, we have the Commanders taking on the Giants in a divisional game. Who you got?
Give me the Commanders. The Giants look like the worst team. Well, they're certainly the worst team in the NFL. NFC, sorry. Potentially the NFL. Give me the Commanders and Sam Howell to continue the momentum.
Yeah, give me the Commanders as well. The offensive line looked a lot more improved last week as they beat the Falcons. I expect them to win again this week against the Giants. And finally, the Broncos taking on the Packers.
The Packers off a bye week. I think they're going to be slow. Broncos are due a massive bounce back. I'm going for an upset here. Russell Wilson, sort your shit out. Sean Payton, sort it out as well. Broncos, give me them.
Right, I'm going to disagree with you here. I mean, I'm sure this is a likely upset as well for me, but I'm going to stick to the Packers. Jordan Love has been studying the tape in that bye week, and he's going to have a get-right game here. Give me the Packers.
So, moving over to the 9:25 matchups, we see a divisional rival in the NFC West. The Cardinals will be taking on the Seahawks, both coming off disappointing losses. But would you say that the Seahawks is more of a disappointment than that Cardinals loss, Callum?
Well, I think with the Seahawks, you sort of expect more from them, especially with this team that is fairly good on paper. They're kind of quite good on both sides of the ball, and yeah, they put up 13 points against the Bengals, who, are not great this season, not as good as they have been certainly for the past couple of seasons. They disappointed me heavily last week. They only got to Joe Burrow 3 times, and the fourth quarter ultimately they choked when it matters. I think they on fourth down, I think they fumbled and that was recovered by the Bengals. And there's just way too many defensive penalties all game for the Seahawks. It really cost them. I'm not sure exactly how many yards it were, but they were getting penalised all night long. In fact, I think there's 7 penalties. I'm not sure how many was on defense, but yeah, the defense were beating themselves up, and the offense as well. That wasn't good. We saw DK Metcalf lose his cool. He was getting guarded all night, couldn't really get anything going, and he sort of pushed the cornerback and another 15-yard penalty for the Seahawks. So they sort of beat themselves a lot of the time last week, and very disappointing against the Bengals. I'm not sure what you thought about the Cardinals last week.
The Cardinals, I mean, they lost against that Rams team, but they have got the addition back of Cooper Kupp, the Rams, so I wasn't really expecting that much from the Cardinals. The only really momentum and chance that they got for points was when Josh Dobbs threw the ball to Zach Ertz and they were marching down the field, and unfortunately it ricocheted off Ertz and it were picked off by the lineman. So Christian Roseboom stepped up and sort of sealed the game and put it to bed. Joshua Dobbs, he continues to disappoint, and you know what? I'm glad because he let us down a couple of weeks ago against who was it that they were playing against when they let us down?
Bengals, I think.
Oh yeah, both teams have lost to the Bengals in 2 weeks, then haven't they? Actually,
Yeah.
That's an interesting talking point. To be fair, I think the Cardinals were more heavily beat than the Seahawks, but Josh Dobbs, yeah, he's 21 out of 41, just over 50% completion rate, 0 touchdowns in the game, another interception, and that's ultimately why the Cardinals are a mid-offense. And then in terms of defense, go on.
Go on, sorry. Well, I was just going to say, I think that the main point in the game that I remember certainly was he had Marquise Brown wide open in the end zone, and he completely overthrew him high and wide. I think it was in the end zone anyway, or a very deep shot, high and wide. That was a sort of chance to let the Cardinals get back in the game, and he blew it. But I mean, other than that, nothing. When I watched the game anyway, I didn't feel like he played too badly. I just didn't feel like the receivers are open. They had no run game. I mean, he led the team in rushing yards. So I didn't really think Josh Dobbs had done too much wrong. But now I've looked at the stats. Obviously, he's not impressive, and I just think this team all round now is sort of coming to a point where we expected them to be at the start of the season. You know, for a few weeks they put up some good performances, but as of late, again slipping into that poor play, and they're very poor last week.
I mean, they certainly can't rely on the defense either. To be fair, they've given up an average 376 yards per game this season, and for me, the offense has got to score points to give them a chance of winning. If they're not scoring points, they're not going to win any games at all. And I certainly can't see it happening against that Seahawks team. But you know, there's issues for the Seahawks as well, as you mentioned, major penalty issues. I think 60+ yards that they're giving up just on defense alone last week, and that's where it all spiraled from. I mean, in that first, I think it was the first quarter, the first time that the Bengals had got the ball when they were down 7-0, and I don't even think Joe Burrow was going for the 4th and 2. They were just playing, I mean, probably for offside, and the Seahawks defender ended up in the neutral zone. So 5-yard penalty, it lets Burrows get another set of downs, and they go march up the field and score a touchdown. So I think the Seahawks really have got they've only got themselves to blame for that loss. And to be fair, it was probably Geno Smith's worst game of the season.
Yeah, I mean, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. It's not good viewing, is it, at all? But you know, with that being said, though, you've got to expect them to bounce back this week into a very poor Cardinals team, like you said. I expect Kenneth Walker to have a much bigger week this week. He's sort of kind of playing well, kind of playing average at the minute, and I expect him to have a bit of a breakout game against the Cardinals. And again, I expect that DK Metcalf will bounce back. And I will just say, I found a new favourite player's name, should I say, on this Seahawks team, Jake Bobo. I mean, I heard it in commentary, like, what the fuck is that? But what a name. Could you imagine being a commentator and just screaming Jake Bobo down your mic? I mean, I don't know why. I just now all of a sudden like Jake Bobo for his name, but just a weird talking point for you there.
I think he's a rookie, actually. He got drafted this year, I want to say. I'm sure he's a rookie.
Genuinely couldn't tell you.
I don't know why I know that, but I'm sure I heard it on the commentary that he was a rookie. I mean, and to be fair, I think the biggest standout player right now has got to be Tyler Lockett, hasn't it?
Well, it's strange because both these receivers, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, one seems to play well one week, one seems to play well the next week, and obviously Tyler Lockett stepped up a little bit this week, 6 receptions, 94 yards. I'm sure next week if DK Metcalf's turn to step up, and it's very rare that we see both of these players actually play well at the same time.
I just from what I remember of the game, and it's, I mean, for the past few games, it's been Tyler Lockett making the big plays. He got his team up for a chance for a touchdown on more than one occasion in that fourth quarter. They had 2 good chances to score a touchdown. Arguably should have kicked a field goal, took the points to make it a 1-score game, and then back the defense, who did come up with the ball. You know, the Bengals went 3 and out, and ultimately the Seahawks got another chance to win the game. So in hindsight, if they'd kicked the field goal, they could have had 2 field goals and won the game. But I guess you can't think like that. You know, Pete Carroll probably thought that it wasn't going to get the ball back. But I just think he's probably got to put a little bit more trust in the defense, who only conceded 17 points last week. The Cardinals conceded 34 points, I think it was, against the Bengals the week before. So in theory, this Seahawks team should be beating this Cardinals team.
Yeah, and if I'm being honest, I think they will beat this Cardinals team. I think the Seahawks have got far too much talent on both sides of the ball, but especially the defense. It's a young defense. It's only going to get better. There's so much talent on that side of the ball, and I just think they'll shut out the Cardinals for the most part in this upcoming week. I think the only concern really is maybe Josh Dobbs scrambling with his legs. But other than that, I don't see any sort of positive outlook for the Cardinals coming into this one. So yeah, give me the Seahawks in a bounce back game, and I think it will be quite a high scoring one as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with everything that you've just said there. You've hit the nail on the head. And I will also be taking the Seahawks to win.
In our next matchup, we see the LA Rams taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, the Steelers are coming off a bye week this week. Do you think that'll give them an advantage, Minnie?
Well, I think we might have said something along the lines of, the bye helping the Seahawks, and we saw what that did to them last week against the Bengals. So I don't see it being a good thing for the Steelers. Maybe they could have drawn up some more players in offense, because they certainly need something going on offense for them. I mean, they're the third worst offense in the league currently. They've only scored 79 points this season, and there's not many standouts for them other than probably that man George Pickens. So yeah, I imagine they've had a week to work on stuff and prepare for this Rams team. I don't think they're going to be good enough for this Rams team, though. With that said,
no, I'm with you on that one as well. Obviously, Steelers coming off a bye, it's hard to know what to expect, but we know how poorly they're performing before they went on that bye. Matt Canada, obviously, he's surely on the hot seat. He's got to be the worst offensive coordinator in the league, you'd have thought. And then in contrast, you've obviously got coming up against the Rams, who are scoring for fun at the moment. Last week they could have a huge win against the Cardinals. Matt Stafford, 226 yards, a touchdown. Kyron Williams, the run game got going in the second half, and he exploded for 158 yards. And obviously that man, Cooper Kupp, for me, he's certainly a top 5 receiver in this league, if not top 3, to be honest. In fact, you know what? I'm going to go out and say he's a top 3 receiver in the league. He had 148 yards again and a touchdown. And I mean, this offense is absolutely phenomenal, isn't it?
Do you know what? I watched him last week against the Cardinals, and I wrote down Cooper Kupp is back, and it's like he's never been away. Actually, he just slotted straight back in. He's catching deep balls. He's sort of looking over his shoulder. I can't remember who the cornerback's name were for the Cardinals, but he couldn't touch him. He couldn't get anywhere near him for some of the plays that he were making. It was it was such a good watch. The guy is genuinely.
I actually don't
brilliant.
know how he is so good, because he's not got elite speed, he's not got elite size, he's not got anything. He just does everything well. And what a little white man he is, he's repping it for us white men out there, and he's just making them look stupid. And obviously, we've seen that. He's obviously making Puka Nakua's workload go down. He was limited to just 4 catches and 26 yards last week. I think he dropped one, actually. It might have been in the end zone, actually. Or I don't know. I know he dropped a crucial one last week. Obviously, he didn't come back to hurt them or anything, but should we expect him to have another big game this week?
Well, I mean, he's going up against a tougher defense, not on paper, but we know what that defense is like, and they do win games for the Steelers, and that's what they've proven this season. I expect probably a bit of a bounce back for Puka Nacua, compared to what we've seen. He's certainly in my Rookie of the Year shouts at the moment, and I mean, I've got him down as a top 5 receiver as it stands, and I think statistically he is. So does he drop out now for Cooper Kupp, do you think?
He's got to be, hasn't he? I mean, Cooper Kupp's done it for many years. He doesn't look like slowing down. His route run is phenomenal. And yeah, I mean, Puka Nacua, top 5, I think it might be a little bit of a stretch. He's certainly doing it well for a rookie this season. But obviously we'll have to see in the coming weeks how he fares and how his workload's affected by Cooper Kupp being back in the scene.
I mean, yeah, I'm comparing him to the likes of Tyreek, AJ Brown, Stephon Diggs, DJ Moore, those types of guys. And Cooper Kupp's certainly up there with those guys. I'll talk just a little bit about that Rams defense and all, because I thought they stepped up once again. They only allowed the Cardinals to, what was it, three field goals, I think, last week. And Ernest Jones, that guy is absolute beast. He's top 5 linebacker. I've looked up his stats. He's got 37 tackles and 26 assists on the season, and that does make him a top 5 linebacker statistically. I love my stats, as you can probably tell, but I watched this guy play, and people might not notice him, but since we've started doing this and getting into watching every single team, I've just noticed some of the plays that he makes. It's absolutely insane. He's constantly pressuring, and he's helping his team win games.
Yeah,
ultimately.
I don't think this Rams team this Rams defense, had too much praise over the course of the season so far. But like you said, they limited them to 9 points last week, and throughout the season, really have not looked bad. And I think they are going under the radar a little bit, and I expect them to step up again this week against a Steelers offense who is, well, at best poor. Let's be honest. They're struggling to score more than 20 points a game, and I expect them to be struggling against this week against Rams defense, who, like I said, he's going under the radar.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I said earlier, they're actually the third worst defense in the league. I'm still not impressed by Kenny Pickett. That win against the Ravens, that wasn't Kenny Pickett and the offense. That was either the Ravens offense being terrible on the day, or the Steelers defense stepping up like they have done a few times this season. But I'm just looking at some of the players that they've got and some of the weapons that they've got on that offense, and like Najee Harris, for example, he might be the slowest running back in the league.
I genuinely think if you put me in a race against him, I could beat him. At least the first 20 meters, I reckon I've got him. You got the acceleration of a slug.
I'd love to have seen that guy's sort of drills, like he's just the standard drills. I'd love to know what his times were. That's something that I'm going to have to look up, otherwise it's going to annoy me. But George Pickens is probably carrying this offense. Just before the bye, he went for 130 yards and obviously got that game-winning touchdown. But yeah, it's probably just praise for the defense at the moment, and whether they can do it against this Rams team. I mean, they got 3 forced fumbles against the Ravens in that game. Micah Fitzpatrick looks good. He went for 7 tackles, 2 assists, and TJ Watt, you just know what you're going to get with TJ Watt. He's an absolute sack machine, so they're going to have to apply mass pressure to Matthew Stafford, make him make mistakes, and I suppose see what they can do on offense. But yeah, from what we've seen so far, not really impressed.
I mean, the Steelers are going to get a result here. It's going to have to all come through that defense. With that being said, I think they don't have enough to Steelers defense. I think the Rams are too powerful on offense, too good on defense, and yeah, I think the Rams, you're looking at a wild card team here, and I think they will beat the Steelers in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to agree with you on absolutely everything, and I feel like I've done that a lot today, but, some of these are just no-brainers, I'm afraid, so, yeah, give me the Rams, give me Matthew Stafford, who looks alright, considering he had that hip injury, and, yeah, Cooper Kupp, he's just a boss, so, yeah, give me the Rams to win. So, moving on, we see this AFC matchup, the LA Chargers taking on Kansas City Chiefs. Callum, you watched your Dallas Cowboys against the Chargers last week. Can you tell me what the Chargers have been like?
Well, the Cowboys absolutely battered them from start to finish. No, they didn't. As much as I thought that, as much as I wish that were true, it certainly wasn't. The Chargers, they didn't really impress me, to be honest. Austin Eckler just did not get going against that Dallas defense. The whole team was pretty quiet all night long, really. Justin Herbert maybe had his worst game of his career, if not certainly this season. And yeah, there's nothing really impressed me about the Chargers offense, at least. The defense did limit the Cowboys to just 20 points, which I guess is somewhat impressive. They did put Dak under quite a bit of pressure throughout the game. But again, nothing really that writes home about this team. They did the Cowboys down to the wire, only a 3-point difference, but when it mattered, they choked and Herbert threw an interception to end the game.
Yeah, I think that's probably the main talking point, to be fair, that interception. You said Justin Herbert, potentially the worst game of his career. I'm not sure if it is the worst game of his career, but I certainly think it's got to be his worst performance of the season. We expected big things from Austin Eckler in this game. There were a lot of hype around him coming back into this lineup. Obviously, he's suffered a little bit of an injury, but like you said, he just didn't get going. But the eliteness of the Cowboys defense, or that Austin Eckler just looking a bit rusty coming back from injury.
No, I do think a lot of that goes down to the defense. To be honest, there was all over him all night. To be honest, there was no gaps really for him to run through. And the Cowboys defense did a brilliant job, to be fair, of shutting him down. So, we can probably expect something similar this week as well against the Chiefs. They're a very, very strong defense in this season so far. I expect them to struggle again, to be honest.
I mean, you're absolutely right there. I think the Chiefs are the third best team for points conceded. I think it's less than 100 on the season. So they ain't conceding too many. Not that I've been massively impressed with them overall. I certainly think they've been better in past seasons, but they're getting wins. The 5-1 on the season. They're sort of just dirty wins at the moment. Would you say?
Yeah, I'd certainly agree with that. To be honest, I mean, we know they're lacking a lot of receivers. They arguably got the worst receiving corps in the entire league. So to be 5-1 just shows how good Kelsey and Mahomes are together. They're the ones sort of dragging this team to victory as well as that defense. But yeah, I've really not been impressed by that 5-1 record. Obviously they beat the Broncos last week by 11 points, which is probably less than impressive, and only put up 19 points against the worst defense in the league. So it was a victory, of course it was a victory, but it wasn't an impressive one to say the least. Obviously they're coming off a long week this week. They played last Thursday, so they've had more time to prepare for this game. But so far, I'm yet to be blown away by this team.
Well, I mean, I can't at the moment. I just can't have them up there with the likes of the Eagles, the Niners, and the Dolphins. I mean, the Dolphins put 70 past the Broncos, 70, and the Chiefs only put 19. That tells me everything I need to know about that Chiefs offense at the moment. And like you said, that receiving core, I think that's probably just what they're short of at the moment. Could they get a trade in before the trade window and potentially get someone out? I'm not sure who would be available, but we've seen the Eagles just pick up Julio Jones, so the Chiefs have surely got to be in the market for a receiver. It can't all go on Kelsey all season. I mean, what happens if he gets injured, for example? Then where do they look for points?
Yeah, well, I'd certainly be expecting them to look for a wide receiver before that trade deadline closes. Obviously, we know Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton maybe getting shocked by the Broncos, but again, they're divisional, so maybe less likely to get traded to the Chiefs. Outside of that, I'm not sure. DeAndre Hopkins might be available from the Titans. Obviously, their season's near enough over now. But again, I don't think that's really what they need. DeAndre Hopkins, he's sort of past it now. He's not going to, take over a game, or not as often as he used to by any stretch. For me, I think the Chiefs have got to go all in on a wide receiver, whoever it may be. Send a first rounder, send a whatever it is, and if this team gets a wide receiver, they're going to be the best team in the league. I think they've got to accept that fact and just spend that trade capital.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, to be fair. That's all they're short of for me as well. I'm just having a look at the stats. I mean, Travis Kelce, he went for 9 receptions, another 124 yards, so he had a big game. Rashee Rice, Isaiah Pacheco, the decent numbers, but like you said, I'm just not blown away, and I can't put them in that category of the Eagles, the Niners, and the Dolphins, like I said.
Yeah, it's true. Obviously, as well, they're in a divisional matchup this week. So, more at stake here. If the Chargers do want to sort of be a wild card team, they're going to have to start stringing some wins together sooner or later. I mean, they're 2-3 now, start third in the division. This is a game they've got to try and sneak away with a victory with. But with that being said, are they really going to knock off the 5-1 Chiefs?
Well, you know what? It's a bit of a weird one. I'm not sure. I mean, Mahomes, he had another interception last week. But that Chiefs defense just seems elite, to be fair. And I can't see the Chargers putting up that many points. They've just played an elite defense in the Cowboys. And the Chargers defense isn't great, but the Chiefs didn't put that much up against the Broncos, so are they going to get that many points against the Chargers? I feel like it could be a coin toss. I've just got to go with the Chiefs and Mahomes. I trust him a lot more than I can trust the Chargers and Justin Herbert right now. So yeah, give me the Chiefs to go 6-1.
Well, I'm actually going for an upset in this one. We saw the 49ers get upset last week. The Eagles get upset last week. And I think the Chiefs are going to get upset this week. The Chargers are going to march into Arrowhead. And I think, he's got a chip on his shoulder now, Justin Herbert. And I'm going to take him to bounce in there and take the Chargers to victory over the Chiefs. Next up, we have the game of the week. We've got the Miami Dolphins, who are 5-1, taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 5-1. Obviously, a minute we saw the Eagles drop that first loss of the season last week to the Jets, who are a rival of the Dolphins. Do you see anything in that game that is going to concern you coming into this one?
Absolutely. I mean, Jalen Hurts, he's got to be the talking point. Obviously, we went over this on the Week 6 recap, but I'll touch on it again briefly. He's actually, what is it? I think he's broken his interception record now. He's thrown 7 interceptions on the season. He only threw 6 last season. So, serious turnover problems for Jalen Hurts and the Eagles right now, and they've got to get that fixed up against this Dolphins team.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, 7 interceptions in 6 games. That is a horrendous record, considering the second best offense in the league statistically. I mean, what is he doing? What are they playing at? I mean, we've just seen them sign Julio Jones, which kind of seems like a bit of a panic a panic signing, to be honest. They've already got AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, and now Julio Jones. It's definitely a very stacked receiving core now. And at this point now, Jalen Hurts is out of excuses. This is it. Prove yourself, kid, or get gone, because if it's Dak Prescott in that position, he's under the scrutiny from every media outlet in the world, every Cowboys fan, every NFL fan in the world loves hating on Dak Prescott. And if Jalen Hurts carries on this form, he's going to be under the same limelight, I think.
Yeah, I think probably just the difference between him and Dak right now is that record. He's currently sat 5-1 on the season, and arguably he's lucky because his interceptions have not led to points all season until facing the Jets. That's obviously the main talking point right now is Jalen Hurts, because I think everything else on that Eagles team is phenomenal. Everything on offense and everything on defense. We can go into both sides of that in detail if we really want to, but I think it's fairly obvious, to be fair.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, what's not to love about the Eagles team other than Jalen Hurts at the minute? They're the second best offense by yard in the game. I think they're a top 8, top 9 defense in the league, and they're so well rounded. I think one of the only other concern for the Eagles is obviously Lane Johnson left the game with injury. Their star left tackle, who's probably the best left tackle in the entire game. Oh, maybe not, maybe Trent Williams, but he's certainly top 2. And I mean, obviously they'd be hoping to get him back for this game, but I'm not quite certain the severity of the injury.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that one. That's something that we'll have to put a little bit more research into. But yeah, they've just got everything going for them, and they've added Julio Jones to that lineup as well. It's not fair. Let's be honest, it's really not fair. Have they pulled that then? Have they done that then? Genuinely.
I don't know. I think this Eagles front office is absolutely fantastic, to be honest. I'm actually quite jealous of what they're able to accomplish with this team. Obviously, we saw a lot of their defensive talent leave last season because they wanted paying and they refused to pay them. Then they just did so well in the draft to sort of fill that void and almost go on seamlessly. And again, with his offense as well, they traded for AJ Brown last year, which is probably one of the best trades of the season, if not the best trade of the season. Now, obviously, again, adding Julio Jones to that fold, he's looking for his first ring, and he could potentially get it this season with the Eagles.
Yeah, do you know what? I think you're right, to be fair. I think this could take them just above the Niners, potentially, depending on what happens this week against the Dolphins. Obviously, they're playing another, one of the best teams in the NFL, and the Dolphins. But let's just talk a little bit more about AJ Brown, because since he's put them pink boots on, or those pink fucking boots, as you like to call them, the guy's just been a joke. He's phenomenal. He's put up another, what was it last week? 131 yards, I think it was, from 7 catches. So he's consistent, and I think he's actually the second best receiver in the league statistically. So, they've got so much talent. They've got Dallas Goedert. He seems to be playing well. Devonta Smith, DeAndre Swift. They just pick and choose when they want that guy to pop off in each game, and I could see them all going huge this week against a poor Dolphins defense. Sorry.
Yeah, and you know what? I think there's a lot of pressure on the Dolphins this week. Obviously, we've seen how good they can be. They've got the number 1 overall offense in the league. But obviously, the only game where they've really faced anybody with of decency in the Buffalo Bills, they got humiliated. And I think there's a lot of pressure on the Dolphins' offense, defense, and the head coach Matt McDaniel coming into this one. Like you said, the defense is nothing to shout about at the minute, and I think Jalen Ramsey is still at least a couple of weeks away from returning. So unfortunately, they won't get that bonus coming to this one, and they've got to heavily rely on their offense that scored another 42 points last week. How good is that offense? We just talked about how good the Eagles' offense is, but seriously, how good is that Dolphins' offense?
Well, do you know what? It's a bit of a joke, really. Just like the Eagles' offense is a joke. I mean, they've got Tyreek Hill. He's already on 814 yards for the season. And believe it or not, he's got 150 more yards than AJ Brown, who's in second. So that tells you everything you need to know about Tyreek Hill. The guy is just insane. And, they've got talent elsewhere as well. They've got Raheem Mostert. He actually leads the league for the most touchdowns. He's got 9 rushing and 2 receiving touchdowns. So that's 11. And I think he has scored more than McCaffrey this season. So that guy's no mug either. He scored number 3 last week against Carolina. So yeah, there's so much going for that Dolphins offense, and they've managed to add Jalen Waddle back into the mixer as well. Hopefully he can pick up really from where Devon A-Chain left and fill that gap for him, because it's a shame that he went out to IR with that injury. But what worries me is that Dolphins defense. They're a bottom half defense, and they're actually the 7th worst team for points conceded in the league. So that were a bit of a shock stat when I researched that this morning.
Yeah, and that was a thing that cost them against the Buffalo Bills. Obviously the Bills are a good team, a well-rounded team on both sides of the ball, and I think that might be the difference really between the Dolphins and these other elite teams. The Cowboys, the Bills, the Eagles, the 49ers. This defense is seriously letting them down, and I'm not truly sure why. They traded for Bradley Chubb last year, who's obviously a very good player. Eli Apple, Andrew Van Ginkel, Christian Wilkins. They've got a lot of big names on that defense, and like I said, Jalen Ramsey is going to return at some point in the season. But at the minute, it's just not clicking for that defense. I think even giving up 21 points to the Panthers last week is quite disappointing, to be honest. In fact, they went 14 points down in the first quarter. So they're relying on the offense a lot at the minute, and that could be exposed this week against the Eagles.
Do you know what? I certainly think it will. I mean, I've got the games wrote down here. To be fair, they conceded 21 against the Panthers, who are 0-6 on the season. They conceded 16 to the Giants, who are 1-5. They conceded 20 against the Broncos, who are 1-5, and 17 against the Patriots, who are 1-5. So the only good teams really that they've played is the Bills, that they got annihilated 48-20, and then the Chargers, who they narrowly beat by 2 points. So I think this is probably going to be, well, it's a perfect game, to be fair, and I think it's going to separate the Eagles from the Dolphins this week. I really do.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with everything you just said there. This is a prove-it game, and this game is really going to show us whether the Dolphins are a contender or a pretender. With that being said, I'm with you. I'm in the Eagles ship, unfortunately, on this one. I think Jalen Hurts is going to bounce back. It's a bit of a prove-it game for him as well. And I think the Eagles are going to come out on top, especially with that defense. I think they're going to hold the Dolphins to, well, not measly numbers, but they're going to do enough. And I think this Dolphins defense is going to heavily struggle against this reformed Eagles offense.
Absolutely. I think you've summed up that perfectly. Give me them Eagles to bounce back, go 6-1 and, separate themselves from the Dolphins. So, the final game of the week, we see the 49ers taking on the Vikings. The Niners, who took the first loss of the season against the Browns. Callum, what about that then?
Well, yeah, no one expected that one going into the game. The Browns with a rookie quarterback, and the 49ers up to that point were firing on all cylinders. But we saw them struggle throughout the game, really. The Browns came, made it physical, and made it a difficult game for the 49ers. And that's exactly what happened. Purdy under pressure all night. He threw his first interception of the season. We saw McCaffrey really struggled, to be fair, other than the touchdown. In the running game, he kind of struggled, and then obviously left the game with an oblique injury. And he's probably unlikely to return for this game as well. Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams both left the game as well. And they're sort of day-to-day for this game as well. So there's a lot of negatives coming out of that loss to the Browns. But one thing I will say, I think it was a good time to lose, if that makes sense. I think they will learn from this loss, address a few issues, and it'll prevent them from getting complacent later into the season. And they should be facing a much easier task here against the Vikings, who are one of the worst in the league.
They certainly are, and I mean, they were lucky really to get a win against the Bears. They had another couple of fumbles, can you believe it? I certainly can, because they're just a fumble. Well, we may as well call them Fumble FC at this point.
Minnesota Fumbles.
Minnesota Fumbles, yeah, we'll go with that. That sounds good. They've now got 13 on the season, and they lead the league for fumbles. Nobody wants that stat. I think they've actually almost doubled. They might have even doubled the fumbles from last season. Yeah. Don't quote me on that.
6 last season, I think.
So they've more than doubled it then. That's crazy. And we're on week 6. Are there just serious turnover issues for the Vikings? And they're creating problems for themselves. And regardless of whether this is a full fit 49ers team or not, you can't be fumbling the ball that many times and expecting to win. Against a team like the Bears, then maybe. But against the 49ers, I can't see them winning if they're fumbling this much.
No, I certainly can't. Let's not forget the Vikings have still got injury concern as well. Justin Jefferson, he's still out injured. And, again, I can't. Where do you look for this Vikings team to actually score a point against the 49ers defense, who is one of the best in the league? I expect Nick Bosa and that defensive line to have an absolute field day with Kirk Cousins this week. That offensive line's been shite all season, and I expect that to be exposed even more this week. I'm struggling to find any positives for the Vikings coming to this one.
To be fair, I mean, the defense is no good either. They're one of the worst defenses in the league. So if this is a bounce back, if this is a good opportunity for a bounce back for the Niners, then they certainly need to take it, and I think they will against the Vikings. But yeah, there's just too many turnover issues. There's nothing really going on offense, especially now that Justin Jefferson is out. I genuinely just can't see whether they're going to get points from.
No, me neither. They don't get points from the defense. I'm pretty sure. That's pretty mediocre. And again, this offense has got nothing going for it really. With all that being said, I think it's going to be an absolute whitewash this week. With or without just the 49ers, I think they've got more than enough to beat this awful Vikings team on both sides of the ball. And in fact, even if the 49ers players are all right to return, I think we could see them be sidelined by the coaching staff anyway. Just make sure they're ready for the rest of the season and get just scrape by this Vikings defense if they need to. But in my opinion, I think the 49ers will absolutely blow them away. Yeah,
I mean, could it be a blowout? Genuinely, could it be a blowout?
It genuinely could be a blowout. I could actually see it being a sort of like 24-0 game.
It seems like it's got written all over it. To be fair, it really. You know what? I think 24-0. It could genuinely could have. It might even be worth having a bet on that, lad. Now that you've called it, there's a sign.
A cheeky £1 bet on that.
It's got to be good odds on it. So if there's a team that's going to get blown out, it's the Vikings right now. Especially against probably arguably the best team in the league. Well, I think they still are the best team in the league.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that one. I think they are still the number one team in the league. Once everyone gets back healthy again, I don't see anyone really at that level unless Casey can get a wide receiver.
Yeah, or when the Eagles play them on December 2nd, but we'll preview that in the future. So with all that said then, Callum, I think I know you're taking already, but just confirm it.
I am, of course, taking the San Francisco 49ers.
Wow, that is a shock. Because I'm actually going to be... No, I'm only joking. Yeah, give me the Niners. Easy dub. Thank you for watching this episode of the NFL Abroad podcast. All previews will be posted on Thursdays. Drop a like, comment, and subscribe. Any feedback will be appreciated. Thank you.